Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Alvita Nuliani, and today we are going to discuss parts of sociolinguistics, which are code mixing and then code switching. Before we dive further into them, we need to know exactly what is sociolinguistics and um, the connection between it and language itself. So language is the main tool that allows people to understand one another and interact as members of society. So through language, people can express their ideas, their thoughts, their feelings, and information. Because language is always used in social interactions, and the relationship between society and language cannot be separated. And the study the relationship of this study is called social linguistics, where it is a branch of linguistics that examines how language functions in social context and how factors such as age, education, culture, and social status can influence communication. And also, it explains why people may speak differently depending on the situation they are in. In linguistics, the term code refers to any system of language used for communication, including a language, dialect, accent, or style of speaking. For example, English, Bahasa Indonesia, or local language like Sundanese, um, they are can be considered as codes. So in multilingual societies, many people master more than one code and use them interchangeably in daily communication. So as a result, bilingual or people who speak two languages and multilingual people who speak two or more languages. Speakers often combine or alternate between languages naturally during conversation, and this phenomenon is commonly known as code mixing and code switching. And I'm going to explain about them. For the first is code mixing. Code mixing occurs when speakers insert words, phrases, or smaller language units from one language into another language while maintaining one main language as the base. And according to Gumpers in 1982, code mixing usually happens without any major change in topic or situation, and the speakers simply mix elements from one language because it feels more natural and it is expressive, also practical. Here, Muisken in 2000, he classified code mixing into three major types. First is insertion, where it refers to the insertion of words or phrases from one language into the grammatical structure of another language. For example is, gak suka deh, dia friendly sama semua orang. The sentence structure is Indonesian, but the word friendly comes from English. And in this case, Indonesian remains as the base language while English contributes a lexical items. Next is alternation, where it occurs when a speaker switches from one language to another between clauses, phrases, or sentence structure. For example, aku capek hari ini, but I still need to study. So the first clauses is in Indonesian, and the second clauses is in English. And next is congruent lexicalization. It is where two languages share a similar grammatical structure, allowing elements from both languages to mix freely. For example, gue literally udah told you buku this one itu bagus banget. Here, Indonesian and English are mixed throughout the sentence, and this type is common among bilingual speakers who are highly fluent in both languages, and this can be found in Bahasa Jaksel in Indonesia. So we move to code switching, where it refers to the practice of changing from one language to another during communication, and it often involves switching entire clauses, sentences, or conversational turns. And Hornberger also make case said that code switching occurs in communities where two or more languages coexist and speakers are fluent in more than one language. People switch languages for various communicative and social purposes. For example, like expressing their emotions, emphasizing um, one message or quoting someone's, and also to show solidarity and signal their identity, and to exclude outsiders from a conversation or demonstrating expertise and authority. And here, Poplack identified three main types of code switching. For the first is intrasential, where um, the shift occurs deep within a single sentence without violating the grammar of either languages. For example, is I was reading that book yang kamu kasih kemarin, and it is amazing. And in intrasential, this happens within a single sentence, and this type requires high fluency because speakers have to control both language systems at the same time. And then intersentential, where the language switch happens across sentence boundaries. For example, it is raining really hard outside. Kita makan di rumah saja. And this occurs between sentences where the first sentence is fully English, while the second sentence is fully Indonesian or vice versa. And the last is extra sentential, where it is also known as text switching, where it involves inserting short expressions or text from another language into an utterance. For example, kalau bisa datang besok, right? Words like right, um, okay, or by the way, are often used as text, where this type is very common in casual conversation. Next is this slide shows reasons why people mix or switch languages. For example, is um, discussing certain topics where sometimes a word or expression is easier to say in another language, like about technology, education, or entertainment terms where are often expressed in English. And second is to quote someone. People may switch languages to maintain the uh, originality originality of a quotation. For example, dia bilang, I'll never give up. And then the last one is to emphasize or expressing emotions. Um, it is easier to switch language to make emotions more clearer and stronger. For example, people may use English to sound more expressive or dramatic or humorous. Next. While here, reasons from expertise. Well, according to Hoffman, bilingual speakers mix or switch languages for communicative purposes, like expressing group identity, clarification, repeating important information, inserting into uh, interjections, or making communication more effective. Well, according to Troik, They explained that code switching can also soften requests, strengthen the comments, and fulfill lexical needs, and also exclude outsiders from understand the conversation. Last is to conclude, code mixing and code switching are natural phenomena in multilingual societies because of the globalization, the education, and social media. Um, and people are exposed to multiple languages, um, especially for English. And Indonesia, English words are frequently mixed into Bahasa Indonesia, and we use it in our daily conversation, especially for Gen Z or for young people. And rather than showing language weakness, code mixing and code switching actually demonstrate linguistic ability, creativity, and also social identity, and they help bilingual and multilingual people to communicate more effectively and express themselves more naturally. And the slide shows the references. This is part two of questions, and there will be 6 questions with example of case study. Here is the first case study is about diglossia. In a university's minor, a student represents using formal Indonesian. However, during the discussion session, the same student switches to a more informal variety when interacting with peers. Meanwhile, the lecturer consistently uses formal Indonesian throughout the session. Here, diglossia refers to the use of two different language varieties within um, the same speech community for different social functions. And the concept was first introduced by Charles A. Ferguson, who explained that societies often distinguish between a high or formal um, in institutional situation variety and a low informal or as a daily communication variety. And in the case above, the student uses formal Indonesian during the presentation because this minor is an academic setting. And formal Indonesian functions as the high variety because it represents academic situation and competence. But however, during the discussion session, the students shift into a more informal variety or low variety when interacting with peers. And then, while the lecturer consistently uses formal Indonesian because they are expected to maintain professionalism throughout the session. And according to Fishman, diglossia is closely related to domain analysis. It means that speakers select language varieties depending on settings like education, family, religion, or relationship. Next. Case study about code alternation, style shifting, code mixing, and code switching. The case is during a group discussion, students frequently mix Indonesian and English. One student says, menurut saya, this concept is very important untuk kita pahami, while another responds in full English, but later switches back to Indonesian when speaking to another peer. Lexical items into Indonesian grammatical structure, and according to Muiscan, this type of mixing can be categorized as insertional code mixing. While the second student initially responds in full English but later switches back to Indonesian when talking to another peer, And it is an example of code switching because the speaker changes languages depending on the interactional context and interlocutor. Number three is style shifting, where a student speaks very formally when presenting in front of the class, but becomes highly informal when talking to close friends after class. It refers to the way speakers modify their language style depending on social context, audience, and also purpose. It is it occurs because speakers adjust their speech according to the level of attention they pay to language and the social situation they are in. Um, this always happens because language reflects social relationships. In formal situations, speakers try to maintain um, prestige and meet institutional expectation, while in informal situations, speakers prioritize solidarity, comfort, and also intimacy. Four is code mixing. For the case is in a casual conversation, a student says, aku lagi ngerjain assignment yang deadline-nya besok, jadi harus cepat selesai. In that sentence, it combines elements from Indonesian and English within the same utterance. That sentence is an example of code mixing because it combines Indonesian and English elements. The English words assignment, then a deadline are inserted into an Indonesian sentence structure. According to Muiscan, it occurs when elements from different languages are combined together within a sentence. And in this case, the speaker inserts English lexical items, assignment, and deadline into Indonesian speech. Number five is code switching. During a class discussion, a student begins speaking in Indonesian, but switches entirely to English when explaining a concept, then returns to Indonesian when giving examples. And that situation represents code switching, um, where it occurs when a speaker um, changes from one language to another during interaction. In this case, the student begins in Indonesian, switches entirely to English when explaining a concept, and then returns to Indonesian when giving a sample. Well, according to Gompers, it happens because code switching is a communicative strategy used by bilingual or people who speak two languages speakers to convey social and conversational meanings. The last is dialect. Students from different regions in Indonesia interact in a classroom. Some use standard Indonesian, while others incorporate regional dialect features such as pronunciation, vocabulary, or intonation. So, dialect means that it is a particular variety of language associated with specific geographical region or social group. And according to Labov, dialect differences may involve pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, or intonation. Here in the classroom, in that case, some students use standard Indonesian, while others have their own local languages, like Javanese, Sundanese, Batak, or Minangkabau, because Indonesia have so many diversity. And these differences appear in accent, word choice, or speaking rhythm. Dialect variation occurs because language develops differently across regions and communities, and also um, like factors such as social background, their cultural identity, their environment within their family, and regional affiliation strongly influence how individuals speak. And that's it. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a good day.